So if you've been tuning into the Premier League recently, and I'm talking specifically about that week between February 6th and the 12th, you've probably noticed something. The game just, it looks different.
Oh, absolutely. Different is an understatement.
Right, and it's not a new tactic or formation. The whole aesthetic of the match has changed.
You have the complete visual takeover. You literally can't miss it.
Exactly, and this is what we're going to talk about. This is the launch of the Premier League with Pride initiative, and it feels like more than just a new logo.
It's a huge strategic pivot. For what, nearly a decade, we've all been used to the Rainbow Laces campaign. That's been the standard since 2014.
Yeah, it was iconic.
It was. But what we're seeing now, this With Pride launch, is the league basically taking full ownership. It's a massive shift.
And that's what I want to really dig into today. Because, you know, on the surface, you see bright colors and new branding. But the why of it all, why change a campaign after 10 years, and the how, especially with these new educational mandates behind the scenes, it feels structural.
That's the perfect word for it. It's the difference between, say, wearing a badge and actually building a new foundation. We'll get into the visuals for sure, but the real story here is about changing where the responsibility lies.
Let's start with the immediate stuff, though, the eye candy. Because the sheer amount of branding they rolled out for this 1 week is kind of staggering.
It is, and that's completely by design. They're calling it an embedded approach.
What does that mean exactly?
Embedded.
It means the message isn't just a banner you can look away from. It's woven into the very fabric of the game itself.
Okay, so let's list some of this off because the logistics must have been insane. You have the LED advertising boards around the pitch, obviously. That's standard stuff.
Right, but it goes so much deeper. Think about just before kickoff. The ball plinth, the little stands where the match ball sits.
Oh yeah, fully branded.
Fully branded. And then you have the people, the ball assistants are holding these flag displays.
I saw that. And the managers, the officials, they're all wearing these little pin badges, even the broadcasters. Everyone's in on it. But the ones you pointed out before we started, the substitution boards and handshake boards, that's really clever.
Well, that's what struck me. Think about it. When there's a sub, what happens? The camera zooms in tight, the whole game stops for a second.
And everyone in the stadium and at home is looking right at that board.
Exactly. So by putting the With Pride branding there, you're putting the message right in the middle of these high-attention moments. It's inescapable.
It is. It creates this atmosphere. It doesn't feel like just another ad. It feels like the stadium itself has changed.
And that must be the point. When the handshake board, the very symbol of fair play, has that branding on it.
You're equating the message with the fundamental values of the sport. You're saying this isn't optional. This is football.
Okay, so that's the visual side. But let's get to the elephant in the room. Or maybe the shoelace in the room.
Right, the laces.
For a decade, that was the symbol. If you supported the LGBTQ plus community in football, you wore rainbow laces. But now, the Premier League is replacing it. Why? What was the trigger for changing something so well known?
Well, the documentation around the change is actually pretty open about it. It specifically points to recent player reservations about the laces.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because we've all seen the stories over the last few years. Certain players, maybe for cultural or religious reasons, felt they couldn't wear them.
And then what happens? The story immediately stops being about inclusion.
And it becomes a witch hunt. It becomes who's wearing them and who isn't.
Exactly. And that's the fundamental flaw of a campaign that relies on individual gestures. You're asking a player to publicly opt in, which means you're also forcing them to publicly opt out if they choose not to.
That's such a good point. The whole burden was on the players on the pitch. And if one of them didn't wear the laces, he became the headline, and the actual message got totally lost.
Right. So now look at what With Pride does. It shifts that burden. It takes it off the individual and puts it squarely on the institution.
The player doesn't choose the design of the LED boards.
Nope. Or the ball plinth. Or the substitution board. The league chooses that. The stadium becomes the symbol of pride, not the players' boots.
So it's the league saying, this is our stance as an organization. You play in our house, and our house is inclusive.
It creates a collective, mandated environment. And, it protects players from being the center of culture war. But it also makes the message way, way louder because it's no longer up for individual debate.
You can't opt out of the substitution board.
You can't. And it's worth saying the charity behind laces isn't just gone. They're still involved, but they've pivoted their own campaign. It's now focused more on linking mental health with sport and activity.
Which feels like a much smarter division of labor, doesn't it? The charity does the grassroots mental health work, and the Premier League uses its massive global platform for the high-level branding.
It feels like the campaign grew up. It went from a gesture to an institutional standard.
Ah,
And this is a big but. If we only talk about that, we're just talking about marketing.
just window dressing. Right.
Hmm?
And this is where this deep dive gets really fascinating for me. Because buried in all this is something you won't see on TV. The educational mandate.
This is probably the most important part of the whole thing. The launch comes with a whole new set of equality and inclusion education materials. And they are mandatory.
Who they're for is the interesting part. It's not just the first team getting a quick presentation. They're starting so much earlier.
We are talking about mandatory sessions for academy players from the under-21s all the way down to the under-9s.
Under-9s, let that sink in. 8-year-olds?
Yeah.
I mean, my nephew is 8. He's worried about his video games and what's for dinner. How on earth do you teach inclusion to a room full of second graders?
Well, you don't do it with a dry lecture, that's for sure.
Yeah.
The curriculum is built around these themes of identity and belonging, and for kids that age, that's actually a very natural conversation to have.
Identity and belonging.
Okay.
So it's less, don't do this, and more, who are we as a team?
Precisely.
Yeah.
A kid on a sports team is already learning about being part of a collective. This just adds a layer. It teaches them that the we is made up of all sorts of different people. Your teams might have a different family, come from a different place, and that's just part of who they are.
That's actually really powerful. If you make that a normal conversation when they're 8, then by the time they're 16 or 17, it's not some special sensitivity training.
It's just how the world works.
Yeah.
That's the long game here. You're shaping the culture from the ground up. If you wait until a player is a 20-year-old superstar to teach them about this stuff, you're fighting an uphill battle. But at under 9, you're setting the baseline.
It's like preventative maintenance for the culture of the sport.
It really is. And it ties back to why they changed the campaign. The old way was reactive. Wear these laces to show you're not prejudiced. This is proactive. It's let's learn about each other so everyone feels like they belong from day one.
It's a move from simple tolerance to genuine understanding. And you have to think, in those high-stress youth academies, a focus on belonging is probably going to create healthier people in general.
100%. Those academies are pressure cookers. Anything that validates a kid's identity and tells them they belong is going to have a positive ripple effect well beyond just this specific issue.
Okay, so we have the visuals for the here and now and the education to build the future. But what about the community context? Because I think some people might look at this and think, we've been doing this since 2014. Haven't we solved this already?
If only. The reality is, it's complicated. And to their credit, the league and its charity partners are not pretending everything is perfect.
No, the language they used was quite direct. They specifically acknowledged a lot of anxiety within the LGBTQ plus community because of current challenges.
Anxiety is the word. We're in a polarized time. Progress isn't always a straight line. The feedback they got was clear. Despite all the past efforts, a lot of people still don't feel completely safe or welcome at a football match.
So this with Pride campaign isn't really a victory lap.
No, it's a reassurance. It's a countermeasure. It's the league saying, we see the tension out there, so we're going to double down and make our position even clearer. That's also why they've partnered with a national support line. It's about resources and safety, not just celebration.
And that links back to what the league's chief executive said. The quote that stood out was that the goal is to make sure participants feel comfortable being themselves.
It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Comfortable being yourself.
Deceptively simple.
Yeah, but in a stadium with 50,000 people or in a professional dressing room, that can be an incredibly difficult thing for someone to do.
It really can. And I guess if you're a fan and you see those pins on the stewards and the branding everywhere, it sends a signal that the institution itself has your back.
Even if some individuals in the crowd don't yet. It tells you the system is designed to include you. Which goes back to the substitution boards. They are trying to make exclusion, well, not impossible, at least much harder.
It feels like the whole idea of advocacy in sport is just maturing. It's less of a special event and more of an infrastructure upgrade.
That is a perfect way to describe it. It's infrastructure. The visuals are the physical infrastructure and the education is the cultural infrastructure.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this all up for everyone listening. We've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah.
First, you have the visual pivot. That week in February, with Pride, became this immersive takeover of the match day experience. It's about dominating the visual space to make the message unavoidable.
Then you have the strategic shift, moving away from the personal burden of the rainbow laces to the collective responsibility of the league, which solves that issue of player friction.
And finally, the educational foundation. Mandatory sessions on identity and belonging for kids as young as 8, which is really a long-term investment in the culture of the game.
It's a full ecosystem. It's tackling the present, the strategy, and the future all at once.
It's a huge move. But before we sign off, I want to leave everyone with one last thought to chew on.
Go for it.
We've talked about how this new approach takes the pressure off individual players. But wasn't the power of the laces the fact that it was a personal choice? When a captain wore them, you know he personally cared.
That is the central tension, isn't it?
Yeah. Now that it's just mandated stadium branding, does that dilute the message? Is it better to have a loud, unified corporate voice? Or was the quiet individual voice more powerful?
Does making it everyone's responsibility mean it becomes no one's personal stand?
Exactly. It's something to think about the next time you see that branded substitution board go up. Are you looking at a symbol of courage or just corporate policy? Or maybe it's just what's needed right now.
It's a complex trade-off, for sure. But I think the league is betting on the systemic approach for the long run.
I think you're right. Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. A huge change on the pitch and maybe an even bigger one happening off it. Thanks for listening.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one.
That's all for today's program. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.